This is Joe Carpenter. Today is May 4th, 2021, and I'm interviewing Doland Maynor for the first time. This interview is taking place at the Arlington Historical Society in Arlington, Texas. This interview is sponsored by the College of Liberal Arts and is part of the Maverick Veterans Voices Project. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Where are you from originally, and what can you tell me about your growing up?
Originally, I was from Decatur, Alabama. I arrived in Arlington on Easter Sunday morning, 1931. I was 8 years old. And, the reason I'm here is because of my dad. There was a steel company here that had gone bankrupt during the Depression, and the bank wanted to save their money.
Right.
So they hired a gentleman named Tom Daring from Decatur Iron Steel, and he said he would come if he could bring 5 families with him. He wanted his own people, and so my family was one of them.
Where did you go to high school?
Arlington High School, the high school.
The high school. And you are Mr. Arlington High, from what I understand.
I've been called that because I've grown old. I'm just older than the rest of them.
I see. And were you involved in ROTC in high school?
No, we didn't have ROTC.
Okay. And were any of your family members in the military?
Well, I have a younger brother, 10 years younger than I. He was in the Navy after the war.
Okay. And how did you become interested in the military?
Well, the government got me interested. They were going to draft me into the Army.
Uh-huh.
And I decided that I like the Navy better, so I went over and joined the Navy.
And you spent some time at North Texas Agricultural College. What made you choose INTAC?
Well, it was a local school, and I had the GI Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to INTAC until after the war.
After the war. Okay.
I went on the GI Bill.
Right. And did you join ROTC at that time, or did you just stay out of that?
Well, veterans were exempt.
Oh.
If you just come out of the military, you were exempt.
I see. Okay. And what was your major in college when you attended?
Engineering. Civil engineering.
And how long did you attend?
About a year and a half.
And what made you decide to discontinue your education there?
A pretty girl.
I see.
And I was married, and after a while, there was a little baby, so I was busy supporting them.
Right.
And I never did finish. I intended to go on down to A&M, finish the 4 years, but I never made it. And as it worked out, it was probably a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Was there anyone on the faculty at North Texas Agricultural College that influenced you?
Well, it's an interesting story. In high school, I wasn't much of a student because I really didn't care about going to school. And we had an algebra teacher, Mrs. Muller Rodart. I couldn't get algebra. But during my time in Hawaii, the Navy had some schools you could go to. I went to one of them, and one of the subjects was algebra. And there was a young lieutenant teaching that class. And man, I ate it up. I was a real good student. Well, I come back and went to NTC. I went into the math department. Lo and behold, there he stood. He was teaching there.
Is that right?
He had been separated from the military and was now teaching at INTAC.
Wow, what a coincidence.
I get along pretty good there.
That's great. Tell me a little bit about your Navy experience. You said you went into the Navy rather than getting drafted.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I guess the Navy would have been my preference anyway, but I went to Dallas for the Fairville and joined the Navy, and they assigned me to Naval Air Dallas, which was at Inslee Field, and that's for what they call basic training, but it turned out it wasn't much training to it. You walked around a little bit, and they said, "Here's your clothes, get to work." And I stayed there probably 6 months, and they sent me to Norfolk, Virginia, to Naval Air, to Breezy Point, Virginia, and we were flying PBYs and PBMs out of there searching for German submarines. So German subs were wrecking and shipping along the East Coast. And then suddenly I got some orders to go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Mechanicsburg was across the river. I didn't know what it was for or why I went, but it turned out 6 of us sent, and it turned out that they had looked at my work record and where I was working. They thought I knew a lot about machinery and stuff. I knew very little, but they sent me. Well, we got there. There were 6 sailors and 2,500 ladies, most of them young ladies, working there, and so that was really difficult duty. It was hard, but I did it.
Yes, made a big sacrifice for the country.
Right? On the weekends, one of the ladies would invite you home with them, not to her where she lived, but to her family home, wherever she came from. So you'd spend the weekend with some family, and that was really. I went to the Dutch country. I went to Bethlehem to the Italian steel mills, and it was really enlightening.
And what year was that?
That was about 43, something like that.
What year did you go into the Navy?
42, August of 42. Okay. Went in right before my birthday in 42.
And were you deployed overseas at any point in time?
It's not what you would think. It wasn't combat duty.
Right.
But I suddenly wake up one morning and they had assigned me to a CB battalion, a construction battalion. And I never could figure out why they were looking at my old work record, thought I knew something about drafting. So they were building an engine overhaul plant on Oahu, and they assigned me to a blaster. They was having to blast this rock stuff out, and he would mark on the wall where he wanted to drill the holes, and I made a sketch of that so they'd know where he put the charges. And then at the right time, he'd set that off, and we'd blow up a big mountain of dirt. And
this is not something that you'd ever done before?
Pardon?
That was not something you'd ever done
before? And the only part I had to do it, I just did when he marked them off, I made a drawing of it.
Right.
And
you weren't involved in the explosive part of it?
No, this old man carried dynamite in his pockets, those big old pockets. And I really liked the duty with the CBs because they ate real good.
Oh, is that so?
They were older guys. The CBs were older, really recruited from a construction business. And so they ate good.
Right. That's good.
One night, we were late getting in from our blasting, and the guy running the mess hall said, "Mess hall's closed." And this old guy says, "Well, I just opened it. We want to eat." He said, "I ain't fixing anything." He's going to stick it down my head pocket and says, "You want to keep on running this place?" And so the guy fixed us a nice meal.
that was nice of him. That was very courteous, wasn't it? Did you ever serve in a combat role?
No, never did. I just went where they told me to go.
Right, exactly. Did you lose anyone close to you in the war?
Yes. Several people, both that I knew here and that I knew in the service. From Hawaii there, in my unit there, lot of the guys were gunners on airplane gunners on the rear gunner, and several of them went south, as we called it, and didn't come back. And then a notable one I knew from here was Morgan,
Right.
Luther Morgan, and it's an interesting story how I found out about Luther. I was laying in my bunk one afternoon and picked up a little military paper, and the headline was, Marine gets 3 zeros in 90 seconds.
My goodness.
That's interesting. I read it says, Captain Luther Morgan.
My goodness.
I know Luther. So I lost track of him after that. He went on further out in combat and was shot down.
Right. And were you school friends? Friends from school? Is that how you knew him?
Yeah, we grew up together. He was probably 1 year ahead of me
I see.
in school, but we were active in the Boy Scouts, and it's interesting that we used to have what they call a scout circus in Fort Worth. All the scout troops around had a circus. One of them was a chariot race. Had a chariot just like the old Roman chariot. Well, I rode in the chariot because I was the smallest guy in the troop, and Luther was one of my horses. I had 4 horses, and they got strong boys that were unfaithful, and we won the chariot race, and then you had to get it over a wall. I forget how high it was, but the idea was to get somebody over that wall in the least time. So I was light, I'd run up and they'd throw me high in the air, I'd grab the top, flip over. We won that. So all those guys I grew up with.
Right. So how long were you overseas? How long were you stationed? You were in Hawaii, right?
About 18 months.
And you said that was pretty rough too.
It was, to me it was a lot of fun. Well, anybody shooting at me.
Right.
And we did a lot of things.
Right.
But a lot of things we shouldn't have been doing, but they never did catch us.
Right. As young men do, yeah. And have you been back to Hawaii since?
Pardon?
Have you been back to Hawaii since?
I never have.
Really?
And my wife was prepared, we were prepared to go, and she became ill and never recovered. And I never did go back.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I left there in late December, right before New Year's, so 45, I guess, 45. And you got to go home by how many points you had.
I see.
Well, there I was over there all that time. I had right at the top enough points, so I left early.
I see. Okay. Very good. Were you married or in a relationship when you served in the military?
No. I had a girl in every port. Drew up sometimes.
Typical Navy, right?
Yeah.
Right. And how did you communicate with your loved ones when you were overseas?
Just by letter. I wrote to my mother. My mother and father had moved back to Decatur, Alabama when I was in the Navy. They left here. I was 16 years old when they left, so I've been on my own since I was 16.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with stress when you were in the service? Did you?
I never knew there was such a thing.
Is that right?
Yeah. We had plenty of cold beer in the beer garden and plenty of food, and they were paying me. So
that's good. What kind of challenges did you were created by you being away from home? Were there any issues back home when you were overseas?
Not that I knew of. My dad worked at Decatur Iron and Steel, and they had a nice place out in the country. And so I suppose they did fine. They never said anything.
Well, when did you leave the military? What year did you leave the military?
I remember I was in a barracks at San Diego, enlisted to the Rose Bowl that year. So that must have been 46. So from San Diego, well, I was at California. No, I wasn't. I was at Bremerton, Washington.
Okay.
And they couldn't get me out of there.
Oh.
So a chief walked in the door and I said, anybody want to help me take a ship to San Diego? And I said, I do. So I went to San Diego and I talked to the chief about I wanted to go home. Next morning, he put me on a train to Norman, Oklahoma.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And how long did you serve? How many years?
Almost 4 years.
Almost 4 years.
Just a few months, 4 years.
What was your rank when you left the service?
Aviation machinist mate, first class. And I think that's raised up to master sergeant or something.
Oh, okay. All right. And were you awarded any medals or citations?
Only the ones that I didn't do anything to get, like good conduct and things like that. I didn't do anything for bravery or anything of course. Now I did get a captain's. 5 of us got a promotion for helping build the engine overhaul plant. The base captain sent my mother a letter, told her how good I was. And he told her the things mothers like to hear.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Right.
They call it a U.S. combat and a foreign combat or something. You got those, but they were freebies, you know. Everybody got those.
Right. So, were there any specific experiences or people that you haven't mentioned that you would like to mention?
Well, one of the funniest was I did a week in the brig.
Uh-oh.
Because I had lost my billfold. The uniforms didn't have a pocket. Navy uniforms, so you put your billfold over your belt like that. But somehow I lost it. I don't know where, too much beer or what, but and in just a few days, a black family found that and brought it back to the base. Well, that didn't count. You still did your week in the brig.
Oh my goodness.
And on bread and water.
Is that right?
Yeah. And there's a boy in there who's really chubby and fat. His name was Ed Fayback. And Ed was in there with me, and he said, well, I'll lose some weight this week. Well, after eating a week's worth of bread and water, he gained weight.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
So was there anyone that you served with who influenced you?
I guess to a certain extent, all of them did, but I think I remember couple of the guys that went on what we call going on south and in combat. I remember them well. Both of them happened to be from Ohio, and they were. One of them was a radio man on an airplane. The other was a gunner. They both were taken down there. There was all kind of people. Right now, I can't isolate one of them, but there was a lot of people that I received help from.
So is there anything that makes you think of your time in the service? Any sights or smells or sounds, music, anything that makes you think of that time?
Yeah, when I hear some old World War II songs, I said, oh, that's good. I know you wouldn't remember there'll be smoke on the water, on the land and the sea, when the Army and Navy overtake the enemy, things like that, or going down to Point Kuloma. Both mother and daughter are working for the Yankee dollar.
Do you still hear those?
Oh, yeah, if you go on Amazon or some of the things, you call them up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have you remained in contact with anyone who you served with?
Well, for a while I did, but now they're all gone. My favorite guy, a friend, was a boy when I was in Hawaii, was a Norwegian kid. His name was, we called it Benjamin. He called it Ben Jameson. He was a true Norwegian. And when he started school in Minnesota, he couldn't speak English. So, but he was funny. He'd be in the shower singing that song, I got bird that yingo yango ying. And my other two real buddies, I was at several bases with. I'd get transferred and eventually we'd end up back together somewhere. Both of them are gone now. I still go to Albuquerque and visit one of them's daughter. They came here to visit, and I was asked, how long have you known Nancy? I said, well, I carried her around when she was like this in my arms. So I remember all those people.
That's great. Are you or were you involved in any veterans organizations?
Yeah, I'm American Legion and VFW, and of course the Elks Lodge is based. Their crew is taking care of the veterans. That's one of their prime things, and so things like that. I've been a member for years.
What did you do after you left the military?
Well, before I went in the military, I was in an apprenticeship program at the shop of Southern Armament Iron Works. Well, I was 2 years into my apprenticeship when I went in the Navy. So I came back, went back to work for Southern Armament, and completed my 4-year apprenticeship in the shop. And then I got the opportunity to move into the office. It wasn't dirty in there. And but I was the lowest man on the totem pole. I ran the blueprint machine in the engineering department. Boy, that was difficult. They'd make drawings, I'd take them and make copies of them with the blueprint machine. That was my job. And from there, they decided to put me on what they call on the board and teach me drafting. Well, I did that. I eventually became chief draftsman. Then the boss wanted me to go in an estimating department, and I learned that. So I kept going, and people kept dying, and so when they died, I'd move up. So I ended up chairman of the board.
all the way from an apprentice to chairman of the board.
Yeah. And then I had a high school unit, our 50th unit, you had to fill out this thing too. Why are you still an artist? And I told him, well, to begin with, I didn't have enough money to leave. I went in the military and come back, I still didn't have enough money to leave. So I just stayed and worked.
It did pretty well for yourself, it sounds like.
Yeah, I did, really.
What did your company make for the military? Because I know that there were pontoon bridges, for instance.
Well, I wasn't here.
Right.
They got into the military work right after I left. But the main thing that they got notoriety for was the Bailey Bridge.
Right.
And I wasn't here, didn't see it, but they built all the platform for the bridges. And the first, we had hanging on the wall in the office a big picture that was taken of the first bridge across the Rhine.
Right.
Was a Bailey Bridge made in Arlington, Texas.
Is that right?
Yeah, and the Rhine was flowing and it bowed out like this, but they were designed that way. It wouldn't wash away.
Right.
And they would carry tanks or anything across there on Bailey Bridge.
Right.
And then they were manufacturing the Liberty ships was big.
Yeah.
And ship ladders. And there were lots of ship ladders in the ship. We made those and sent them to where they're building the boats, the ships.
So going back
the Navy
to that,
don't call them boats.
Yeah, they don't call them boats, right? Yeah, I guess it would be a ship, wouldn't it? Going back to that Bailey Bridge for a minute, was that what Patton was famous for, leaving his mark in the Rhine?
He sure was. He sure was. That was one of Arthur Bailey Bridge.
That's right. But so the picture in your office was not actually a picture of Patton.
It didn't show Patton doing his business there.
But nonetheless, it's a claim to fame, right?
Yeah, it was there.
Yeah, and so so the Bailey bridges, the ladders the ship ladders for the Liberty ships. Anything else that sticks out in your
Right
mind?
now, I can't recall. I'm sure there were other things. Yeah. There was all kind of hatches and things like that we could make and ship to the shipyard, whether it was in Norfolk or wherever, because they needed everybody. One company couldn't do all the work that was needed to be done, so they divided up, and we'd make the hatches, ship ladders, and some ship them there, and somebody else was shipping something else, and they put it all together there with the hull, you know.
So how did the end of the war impact the business of that company?
Well, as I understand it, the company was making lots of money during the war, but they didn't get to keep all that money. There was a bill passed, something, all the contracts were renegotiated. So they renegotiated down to where you maybe got 15% or something instead of 30%. But another side of it, they had access to some good machinery that we could have never afforded. But press brakes and things, they had warehouses full of shop full of brand new, beautiful machines that we could get just for applying for them, you know.
Wow.
And of course, you had to pay the shipping and the setup costs and all that. But we had got machinery that helped us in later years. So Mr. Vernon was president of the company then. He was a pretty sharp guy.
When were you married, and how long were you married?
I was married in 1946.
Okay.
1946.
Right after you came back from the war, pretty much.
Yeah. One of my Navy buddies was from up at a place called Salina, which was a little old farming community. In those days, it was just a little old cotton growing farming community. He says, I want you to go every night. And I said, I don't know a girl. He said, I'll get you a girl. He said, I know there's a little old farm girl out here. I thought, yeah, I bet you do. Well, boy, she was a doll. So we got married. And we were married 57 years.
My goodness.
57 years.
That's a long time.
In her later years of her life, she suffered from the sugar diabetes.
I see.
Bad to the bad. Finally destroyed her heart muscles. And there's no way to give her a heart transplant because of the sugar. It wouldn't ever heal.
Right.
So she died with a heart attack.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
In 2004.
Wow.
But she was sick for a couple of years.
Right.
Very, very, very ill. But she was really a nice lady.
Right.
And it's a beautiful girl.
Right. Not so bad, a farm girl. Not so bad.
No, a little farm girl. Her daddy, I asked her one time, he was a farmer, but you know, if you picked 500 pounds of cotton a day, you was one hell of a picker, you know.
Right.
Well, I asked her daddy, I says, when Dorothy was young, how much cotton could she pick a day? He said, well, let me tell you something. If I put her up in the wagon that was loaded with cotton, she couldn't kick 100 pounds a day out of it. So she wasn't a farm girl.
She wasn't much of a farmer.
She didn't like farming.
Right.
And after we'd been married for 20 years, I guess, we was up at Sherman, and we was at some kind of a party, and she said, "There's a guy right over I want you to meet." So she called him over, and she introduced me to him, and said, "This was my high school boyfriend."
Is that right?
Yeah, and his family owned about 1,000 acres or something, and I said, "See, you could have a big farm." And she was, "I don't care if you had a millionaires, I wasn't going to no damn farm."
She wasn't going to have any of it.
No.
That's great.
She had sight on the big city lights.
Right, right. Well, and you gave her quite a life, didn't you?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your time on the city council.
Oh, that was enlightening.
Yes.
I really hadn't started. By that time, I was executive vice president of the company, and I was familiar with all the councilmen and everything. And we had a guy running that was really Andy Vandergriff, and Tom was doing a lot for the city at that time, and so I ran, and he had a lot of sports for the university, young people, and but I ended up with 62% of the vote. So,
oh my!
And the next time I didn't have an appointment, and the next 2 times I had an appointment, but I always won. So I decided not to run again.
Right.
The guy was on the council named Stovall, who later became the mayor, told me, "Someday you're going to make somebody mad and get an opponent." A real opponent. So,
did that ever happen?
No, they were pretty easy to beat, but I decided maybe he was right. I better quit while I'm winning. But no, by that time I'd taken on other duties at the company, and I really didn't have time to. It takes a lot of time. Most people don't realize how much time it takes to be a council person. It took a lot of time then because we didn't have set up like now. They have secretaries, they have this, that to help them, but we had to do it on our own, you know. So, but the city wasn't as large either. So these guys nowadays have a lot more problems than we had. We were growing so fast that there was always plenty of money coming from the new growth. But now when you start topping out, it's a different story. These people now, for the last 20 years, so they've done a good job all in all.
So tell me about bringing the Texas Rangers to Arlington. How did that come about?
Well, the council wasn't involved in that as much as the mayor. The mayor, for God knows how long, 10, 15 years, had been buttering up owners around the nation he wanted a team. Well,
you're talking about Tom Vandergriff here.
Tom Vandergriff. And it never cost the city a cent. Tommy paid his own way. His dad paid his way. Hooker paid the money, I guess. Yeah. And this one time, as Tom was a league meeting, and one of the proposals made was expansion of Arlington into Arlington. Well, by that time, Houston had a team, and they had a county judge down there was running that operation. Judge Upfines, I believe. And he didn't want another team in Texas. So, as I understand it from the mayor, he and the present owner, the owner then, were at the meeting in New York City, and there was a tie vote. So, somehow the mayor got him to postponed the final vote, and he found out that Gene Autry was in a hospital in Boston, and he and the owner went up to Boston and explained it to Gene. Gene said, "Well, I think you need a team up there," and he gave him a proxy.
Oh,
they went back. Hey, here's the vote.
And he was Gene Autry was the owner of the Angels at the time. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. So he got the proxy, and they got it done.
Yeah. Now that's the way I heard it from Tom.
Right.
I wasn't there, but then we were standing by in Arlington. The council was on call to vote. We had to vote and accept that,
Sure.
So he called in and we voted. But Gene was for us because he was from up here, Tioga or someplace.
Okay.
And so that's where we got. And then all we had was a little Turnpike Stadium. It was just a minor league park.
Right.
So between that time in the winter, the opening next day, we had to expand it. We had to put lighting in it that satisfied the Major League TV, and a lot of work to do. And we just loved Old Turnpike Stadium. It was like an old-timey ballpark.
Yeah.
And
is that what they called it, Turnpike Stadium?
Turnpike Stadium, because it was right on the Turnpike, which
I remember.
is 30 now.
Yeah, I-30.
That was a toll road.
Right.
And the mayor had convinced the leadership in Dallas and Fort Worth that they should join us in seeking this franchise. So,
I see.
So they called it Bi-County Stadium or something. We called it Turnpike Stadium.
Okay.
And that's where we got it.
Is that why they named it the Texas Rangers, named the team the Texas Rangers rather than the Arlington Rangers? Is because of the partnership?
Yeah, it was we wanted to be sure everybody didn't argue with each other. See, They used to fight each other. Whatever Fort Worth wanted Dallas was against vice versa. So he had talked them into joining us. And if he hadn't, we wouldn't have got it anyway.
Right.
But Tommy was a convincing speaker.
Is that so?
And a good guy, an honest politician.
Wow.
That's the reason he didn't last long in Washington. He was elected as a Democrat, but a Republican had something that was good for the public. Tom voted for it.
Right.
Well, the other Democrats didn't like that.
I see.
So they arranged for him to be defeated.
What year did you retire?
In 82.
And how long were you with the steel company?
From 1940 to 82. They kind of in my military time and service time was done for awards and things.
Yeah.
Like you got your 25-year watch.
Right.
Watched it. And like that. So it was that long. And I actually stayed 3 more years. We sold the company.
Oh, okay.
And part of my contract was that I'd stay with them 3 years. Yeah, so I really had 45 years there.
Oh, my goodness.
And there was one lady that went to work one day before I did. Her name was Maggie Purdue Harden. And she always claimed she had seniority. How do you get promoted? I got seniority. It was great.
What other memories do you have of Arlington when you were growing up?
Oh, well, that was a lot of them. The interurban line came right down Abrams Street. That was just a big overgrown streetcar,
Right.
And it ran through Abrams Street. In fact, the chief of police got several of us one night. If you come up Abrams Street going west, up about Cooper up in there, you don't realize what you're going up a slight grade. Okay. Well, we got the bright idea that we'd take axle grease and grease the track. Well, this thing run on a cable, up there like a streetcar. When he got up there, went, oh. So that caused a lot of problems. somehow or other, the conductor or driver of the thing recognized one of us.
Oh, no.
And he told the police when they got him, he squealed on the rest of us. And the chief of police was Art Cribs. He came and got us.
How old were you?
Oh, we was probably 14 or something like that. And he took us to jail, you know.
Oh, my goodness.
He took us back here and just put us in there and slammed the door and walked off. He did it on purpose.
Right.
After a while, he came back and says, "How you like it there, boy?" And we said, "We don't like it, Chief." And he says, "Well, I'm going to let you out. But if I'll catch you ever doing anything else, I'm going to keep you in there." And he let us out. That's the way Arkansas was run in those days.
Right.
You didn't go by letter of the law.
Yeah. So, just tell me about your home and where you grew up, the house you grew up in, the neighborhood, or wherever you grew up.
I was a North Sider.
Okay.
And the North Side wasn't considered to be as good as the South Side.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, the people on the South Side didn't particularly claim people on the North Side of the tracks. The tracks.
I understand.
But I was a North Sider. And I lived on Elm Street, way down on the north end of Elm. So we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
We developed a system where we could take clay balls and get willow sticks, long willow stick leaves off, and stick the clay ball on it and go like it. And we could throw them a long distance so we'd bombard somebody on the south side.
On the south side, on the other side.
They didn't know how to make clay balls. So we give my well the hell on that. But,
so you were on the other side of the tracks.
Yeah, I was on the north side.
Yeah.
Betty Sarah McKnight was the north side. There was a bunch of them.
Right.
North side. Junior Sibley. I remember one thing that was really funny. It was after the war, right after the war, the city got the idea to put up a Christmas tree.
Mm-hmm.
So we had them, you've seen pictures of the city well.
Yeah.
They decided they put that Christmas tree on the north side of the well, right in the center of the street. It was a humongous tree. Mm-hmm. Well, that was the days I was in the young and did a lot of things, so I volunteered to help put the Christmas tree up.
Sure.
So we got the Christmas tree all the way up, had it ready to turn the lights on, just standing back and admiring it, and here come a lady down the street, Mrs. Joyner. Mrs. Joyner had always hit everything, and she hit the street dead center. And the tree fell over on her car.
Oh my goodness.
And we had cops here then, Mr. Kelly and Minor Moore, Mr. Moore. We call them the Keystone Cops. They were just really the Keystone Cops. I never when Mr. Kelly went nowhere. He said, "Oh, are you hurt, Mrs. Joyner?" She's gonna fly down. "Hell no, I ain't hurt. But who in the hell put that tree in the tree?" So then we had to put the tree back up.
Oh my goodness! Did you lose it after that?
No, we put it back up there.
Yeah.
And Miss Jordan didn't hit it again.
Well, I guess she figured out that there was going to be a tree there. Oh my goodness! So, what other things did you do as a kid?
As what?
As a kid, what did you do? What other things did you do?
When we rolled the creek, in those days the creek flowed clear through town. In fact, I drank water out of that creek when I was a kid. And there was some pretty good sized little fish in there.
Oh, wow.
My brother would go down there and fish. We fished and catch us some perch. And then I moved up close to the waterworks, which was on North Main, West Main. And I hung out up there with the old guy running the waterworks a lot. So it was fun.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had one sister 3 years younger than I, and had a brother 10 years younger.
Right.
They're both gone. They're gone a long time. All my folks are gone.
Right.
I've had a lot of cousins. Of course, when 13 in my dad's family, time they all got married, had a couple, 3 kids. I had lots of cousins.
Oh, boy.
So there's a few of those still left, but most of my cousins are gone.
Right. You still know quite a few people, though. You still know quite a few people, though.
Oh yeah, no, I used to visit a lot over there. And my sister lived there.
Right. Yeah, you have quite a reputation with the Historical Society.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Do you think that the city puts enough into maintaining and honoring its history?
Well, that's hard to say because I'm not familiar with what they've done recently, but they are furnishing funds here out of that fund they have. Prior to that, it was pretty difficult, but they did furnish the building,
right?
And then the first vote I cast on the city council was to purchase the Veterans Park land.
Oh,
that was the first time I voted.
All right.
And built the Veterans Park, and they've done other things like Colonel Fire statue. Which
yes.
I assume he's down there in the closet now.
Yeah.
And I was heartbroken on that. I was on a flight to Washington called the Honor Flight, and I told them all the time, now when we get to the Air Force Memorial, I want to see Colonel, he said my name? Kirby.
Yes.
Because he's an Arlington guy, and he's one of our heroes.
Right.
We got there, looked on the wall. What does it say? Colonel Kirby, Wichita Falls, Texas. I came back, I was muttering the North.
I bet you were.
Geraldine telling us that his family claimed that's where he was from. You know? And now she can tell you all about it. But I was really disappointed. They said, "Yeah, where you Arden guy?" You know?
Right.
I said, "Damn if I know."
Right.
But they had a big write-up about the big thing at the memorial for him,
right,
acknowledging him.
Yeah.
But it said he was from Wichita
Falls. Is that right? Do you ever return to the UTA campus and look at the changes that have occurred there since?
Well, I haven't in quite some time, but I have been over the years. And it's sure different than when I was there, you know. I think it was about maybe 700 when I was there after the war.
Goodness.
Something like that. And,
a lot of pasture land. A lot of pastures, right?
Yeah, well, that's what they called a quadrangle. That was a huge piece of land.
Right.
And had an old wooden barracks built up there with old. But it was a neat school. We had some people there that went on to great things, like, you remember the guy Morgan Woodard in the movies?
Yes.
He was there then. Of course, I knew all the Woodard kids. So I communicated with Morgan up to the time he died. And his name was Tommy when I knew him.
Oh, is that right?
And the movie people changed it to Morgan.
I see.
And
yeah, he was in Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah.
Right.
Man with no eyes.
Right.
Yeah, that was Morgan.
So do you have any advice for young people, either entering the military or graduating from school and entering into the business world? Do you have any advice to offer them?
Well, something that worries me now that so many of our younger people don't have respect for older people or are what we've had all these years, and their manners are not real good. I would like to see them correct their manners and their respect for institutions and what we've had. And I want to change it. I could see some of the things they're doing that probably was going to come someday, but some of it, like going to do away with the national anthem and things like that. I think that's ridiculous.
Right.
I wish they'd reconsider that but just show more respect for that.
Right.
For customs and things like that.
Yeah, I agree. And is there anything that you would like to add to the interview that I haven't covered?
Well, I'd like to thank UTA and you for doing it and supporting the veterans. And I know we have people here that work diligently and really did it. If you've seen the books that Wanda made,
Yes.
that's a work of art.
Yes. I have seen the books.
I don't think anybody in the country has anything like it. To my knowledge, she may know, but that's about it.
Yeah, well, I have seen the books, and Wanda Marshall has done a great job, and I was so happy you could be here on Wanda Marshall Day.
Yeah, me too.
To help recognize her for that.
Yes, she's a wonderful girl.
I want to thank you for interviewing with me. Thank you for taking the time to do that. I want to thank you for your service. I want to honor you for your position in the community and your long service there, and wish you a long and happy life.
Thank you, sir. You're entirely welcome.
Thank you so much.